just to, ensure that when we're designing the future, for the future, and as we design for the future, that we keep in mind how we can mitigate the smoke issue. How can we do that the best way possible and still make the customer that wants to smoke feel like they're welcome as well. The considerations for moving to more non-smoking areas is how is that going to enhance and at the same time support your overall goals moving forward. So for instance, I would look at every non-essential gaming area and make that non-smoking right off the bat. Every area that had no gaming, I would start there, make it non-smoking. There's no reason that those areas are smoking whatsoever. Your hotels, your restaurants, your entertainment facilities, anything like that that has no gaming, then you need to look at your gaming area and say, how do I reduce the gaming smoking space as much as I can before I start impacting the bottom line? And then evaluate that and start chipping away at it. Take a little bit more if you can. And at some point, there's going to be a tipping point. You're going to have to say, okay, that's about as acceptable as I can be without impacting the tribe's needs.
See, that reverts right back to if you have a casinos close by who allow smoking, if you're going to lose your part of your customer base who would go somewhere else rather than to come to your casino, which is 100% smoke-free. So you'd have to provide some area somewhere outside or different areas for people. And that's the only thing I could really think of that you'd have to do if you went 100%.
Well, I think you can increase your non-smoking gaming area, but just keep your smoking gaming area the same size. Don't cut one for the other. I mean, you can have a 50% non-smoking, 50% smoking. It's balancing out your games and your mix on the floor and all that type of stuff to draw your guests to those areas. It's more planning. It's not just jumping in there, and it's not something that you could do overnight. It's changing the whole floor layout to where you have certain games in certain areas or table games in certain areas so people can go to the non-smoking area and the smoking area. But it's hard for casinos because usually they start with a small structure and they jam it all in there. Then they say, okay, we're going to do 10% non-smoking. Well, 10% doesn't cover it. A 50-50 mix would be amazing, but it's hard unless you build it that way. You can't just add on to it and expand it out that way.
Well, health and welfare for your team members is always a huge factor in that. If you can minimize it and not impact your business negatively, or only to a point where you feel comfortable, then obviously it's a really good idea to always push towards the safer side for your team members and for your patrons. At the end of the day, going there requires a lot of communication within the organization, a lot of communication within the leadership and the tribal leadership, and getting really honest with yourself about what the impacts to your business are going to be. And because if you don't do those things, odds are you're not going to have a successful venture.